Viruses and viroids. We're going to look at the structure and identification of viruses and viroids. What are they all about? When we look at virus structure, viruses are not very complex. We've already looked at the part on whether or not they're alive, so what we're going to look at is what makes them tick and how they're put together. Viruses have what we call a capsid, which is a protein coat, and it goes around the virus. The virus, when it's outside of the body or outside of the host, we call it a virion. So it's a protein coat around the outside of the virion. This is a picture of something that looks to be tobacco mosaic virus, and it's a very interesting picture. When you look at it, it looks like a bunch of soda straws with a bunch of parts wrapped around the outside of it. And what they've got labeled there as 2 are basically proteins. And all of these proteins come together around the central core, which is the nucleic acids on the inside. In this particular case, it is a single-stranded nucleic acid. So the capsid is the protein part around the outside of it, the nucleic acids on the inside of it, and that's all you've really got inside of this particular virion. Viruses have either RNA or DNA. They don't have both. They have one or the other. The RNA or DNA could be single-stranded or could be double-stranded, which means that these are a little bit different than what you normally find as far as regular type of organisms go. Viruses can be what we call envelope. And in this particular case, this is from the National Institutes of Health, and this is an HIV virus. And what you see around the outside is you see these purple things that look like little flowers, and those are actually proteins around the outside of it. The turquoise part on the inside is the capsid. The part that goes around the outside, therefore, is actually lipid bilayer, and the lipid bilayer comes from the host organism itself. So when you look at this, we call this particular part an enveloped virus because it's got lipid bilayer around the outside. These are very easy to get rid of outside of the body because all you have to do is disrupt the membrane and they can't infect anything. A non-enveloped virus looks like this, and what you see is you see this particular one, which is cowpea mosaic virus, and you see the different proteins that go together to make up the capsid on the outside of it. And a lot of times these have geometric shapes to them. We also have viruses of bacteria, and we call these things bacteriophages. They may have a structure like this, and this is a T-even type bacteriophage, and it looks kind of like a space capsule, so to speak, and it's all made out of protein, except for the nucleic acid, which is the jumbled part up in the top of it. Protein, nucleic acid makes up your virus particle. When we look at symptoms that they produce, and we're going to look at it mostly from a plant perspective, what we've got is we can have something that's called a mosaic. And you can see this particular leaf, this is really distorted and strange in the way it should be. This is not what the leaf should look like. And this is all because it was infected by a virus when it was quite small, and when it tried to expand, it came out looking like this. And that's quite interesting and quite pretty. This is called a mosaic because you can see the different colors and the different pieces and how they all kind of fit together. Another type of symptom we could get is something called color break. These are Rembrandt tulips, and normally a tulip is monochromatic. It's got a single color to it. If it's got the color break virus in it, then all of a sudden we get these very pretty contrasting colors because you actually get color break in it rather than the standard color it should have. When we talk about symptoms, 3 key terms. Acute occur quickly and they're short-lived. When we look at acute, what we would be looking at is something like the flu virus. When you get the flu, it comes on rapidly, but 10 days later, it's gone. Chronic means it is over a long period of time. And in a chronic infection, you might be looking at something like HIV, where HIV is going to take 10 or more years to actually get to the point of creating havoc on your body. And then we've got what we call latent viruses. And latent means that they get in and they don't necessarily do anything. Today they talk about chickenpox, and if you had chickenpox, later in life you can develop what we call shingle, caused by the same virus. But what happens, you get the chickenpox, the virus kind of gets knocked down, it kind of hides, and it will stay there for decades, 2, 3, 4 decades before it comes back out and gives you shingles. And that time in there is what we would call a latent infection. We also have viroids. Viroids, by definition, is naked nucleic acid. There is no capsid around the outside of it. And these are very elementary infectious pieces of DNA. and therefore they get to be very unique. The one viroid that we often talk about is this, which is potato spindle tuber viroid. Now you look at these three potatoes, you can see the one on the right-hand side looks absolutely normal, and the other two, they just look a little different, right? Chances are you wouldn't even hesitate about consuming one of those or, cooking it up or something like that. It's got a viroid on the inside. What's the viroid going to do? Nothing. But it's viroid, and a viroid is a naked piece of nucleic acid. It's a small infectious particle. It gets in, and all of a sudden it does this on the potato. Doesn't allow it to get up to full size, but rather we have these small ones in there. So viruses and viroids, not very complex in the way they're put together, but they are quite interesting and important.